Parks got to hear now too because he getting cute. But yeah, we was gonna start tallying up the lates, or at least Parks be late coming from another state.
That's what you said.
Joe Budden calls out Parks for being late. This was the first time, I think, on camera that we ever really seen Parks get called out in that regard. But it happened on the last episode of the Joe Budden podcast. But there's been a history of interesting tension between Joe and Parks. Now, most of it is from just doing a podcast together. One of the biggest disagreements they had was editing, and should Parks feel the need to edit every type of thing he needs to edit out.
You know what I spent the hour doing this morning? Telling Ian why Parks need a f***ing raise. That's why it's frustrating. Because I have to fight for. Oh, I forgot. Oh, I didn't know. I just thought that. Well, you said such and such. Huh?
Does he really have a say in what should be edited? Should Joe be the one making the shots? But in this episode, Joe notes, hey, man, Parks, you be late a lot. You be coming late. And it was funny because when I was watching the behind-the-scenes footage, everything was about Flip. Everything was about Melyssa Ford. Everything was about everybody coming late. But then I was like, wait, Parks be late all the time. There was like 3 behind the scenes where I observed Parks coming late. So for Joe to address it on air means that there's a real issue, and we will have to see. I'm sure Parks misses the days of when they recorded in his basement or a room in his house, and now he has to trek it to New Jersey. Boy, it's kind of crazy how when you work with maybe your friend and then you find out that they're making a business change and you got to adjust. Of course, it's a fruitful situation for Parks, so he's going to make that adjustment, but he's having to deal with the navigation of that. And he was arriving early on and then started getting late. But what does this mean for the show? I think it means a lot of good things. It means that anybody can get it. And as the network grows and people are less reliant on, certain people, you could just, I know Parks is great. And I know everybody on the show is, I don't know if everybody on the show is great, but anybody can be replaced. Don't think that because Parks provides great audio that he can't be moved on from. Not saying that Joe wants to do that. I mean, Parks has been on record. Maul, Joe, all of them have said Parks has taken shorts for previous events. So Parks is getting all of that money back now and then some, probably tenfold. But the way Parks reacted was interesting. There was no one-liners. He looked uncomfortable, as you can see in the clip in the beginning. And we will have to see if Joe continues to take it there with Parks. He said, Parks is getting cute. He's trying new things. Is that getting cute, unprofessional behavior? And the trajectory of Parks is interesting. I think he joined around the late 100s, like around the 70s or 80s, like is when he starts to make his appearance. I'm not saying he was on the show permanently, but his voice starts to be heard. And in addition to that, Parks has always been positioned as a yes man, not just by my narratives, but also by members of the show. For example, look at this clip here where Parks and Melyssa Ford kind of go into this back and forth, and Melyssa Ford calls out Parks.
I mean, Parks did kind of answer it.
I didn't. You're speaking for men.
No, you did answer it because you said it was the second one.
Now, Joe and him likely agree a lot because they probably have similar mindsets to things and all of that jazz. After that, there's the Rory and Maul betrayal, which maybe it wasn't necessarily a betrayal because Parks is Joe's friend, not Rory and Maul's. But it appears like he was the one venting to Rory and Maul about being overworked and underpaid, and he would go on and throw them under the bus in episode 437.
Welcome to episode 437 of the Joe Budden podcast.
Which podcast? Most situations like this, what you would do is take a percentage of everything that they do because you have facilitated a place for them.
Then there was Ice, who called out Parks for his yes man behavior in the past, saying that Parks likes to defend Joe a lot.
Parks.
Yeah.
You got to disagree with Joe, boy.
I feel like I disagree with everybody pretty equally, but Joe takes a joke, pause.
Yeah.
And that's not me agreeing with
Yeah.
Joe. That's
If y'all are about to
So you can see in that instance right there, Parks is pro Joe a lot. I mean, it's the guy who cuts his checks. And he's also the guy who introduced Ian to Joe. So Parks is a big part of the business. Now, I know other folks in, my niche have said that they believe Parks gets equity in the JBP. I don't think Parks is seeing any equity in the JBP. The only people who are seeing equity to me are Ian and Joe. That's it. That's it. There's rumors of a third person behind the scenes that nobody knows that also could be a partner, but I don't have any type of verified information. I just saw somebody tell me, like, they hit me in the back channel, like, yo, there's this third guy. He's the one calling the shots. I have no verification of that, but just throwing that out there. But to be fair to Parks, Ice would go on to defend him in this clip right here, taken from a Reddit talk.
I guess with the information you have at hand, yes, I do understand the Parks take. I also think if people had more information, they wouldn't feel the way that they feel about Parks. And also, I just think if people were in other people's shoes, they wouldn't feel the same way, which is what a lot of situations. Like you just, people at the end of the day got to do what they got to do for them. Nobody else. Like you got to look out for yourself. And I don't quite, I just from a little bit of stuff that I've seen, like Parks is a businessman. His business is tied up in a lot of stuff. So I don't quite know if other people were in his shoes, would they do the same thing or would they do something different? I don't necessarily know that. But it's easy to say what you would do or should do or could do from the outside looking in.
Parks is navigating that fine line. I feel like there was a time where he could do no wrong. There was several stages of Parks' trajectory on the show. First, there was his arrival where he was kind of like just a behind-the-scenes person. Then there was the one-liner era where he was always loved and people were like, yo, Parks is the man. He's so great. Then there was the Rory and Mal time where people felt like he betrayed Rory and Mal and people were kicking his back in. They were like, he's a union buster. He's a scab because he trusted Joe over Rory and Mal. And then after that, he was extended another grace period and seemingly got a raise because Joe did say on air that he was going to give Parks a raise as a result of the Rory and Mal departure. But could we be heading towards the downfall of Parks in terms of his perception on the show? It doesn't take long to undo years of good first impressions. You could be early for the first 10 years of your job. If you come late for a month, that's it. People are going to be like, there go Parks. He be late all the time. Yeah, he used to be early, but that was back in the day. I don't know what type of crap Parks is on. It's just weird. Now, I want to end this video by saying, do you think Parks's impact on the show is above replacement? Like, do you feel like if Parks left, there would be a noticeable drop-off? Because the show survived a lot of losses. Marissa, Rory, Mal. And the audio experience is divisive. There's people who are real audiophiles. Like, yo, I need to be able to hear it perfectly. If I don't hear it perfectly, I'm knocked down. And then there's other folks who are like, I just want to hear the show the way I hear the show. As long as it's fine with me. I listen to Funkmaster Flex. I listen to Rory and Mal. I listen to all types of podcasts on TV, on radio, and all of this stuff. So to me, the audio doesn't need to be crazy. And I don't even listen to sleepers. So whatever Parks does with the audio in terms of sleepers doesn't really matter to me. And if you look at what Parks is, he's a revolutionary person in terms of podcasting, right? You're taking someone who's been a part of the industry, who's produced for several people. Well, not produced. He's handled the production for several people, like DJ Premier. And they're doing podcast audio? That's revolutionary in the space. Most of the people doing audio in podcasting are people who work at like WTF Media or who do podcast editing, which gives him an edge. But is that edge noticeable enough for him to show up late? For him to not be made fun of, even though he's an on-air personality? People be saying like, oh, Park shouldn't be made fun of because he doesn't make fun of people. Nah, he makes fun of people. He be taking jabs. he be executing the vision of Joe's narratives, right? When Manny was talking about the 50,000, Parks was in the cut saying, well, 50,000 is okay if you're only working twice a week, theoretically. And we all know he was really talking about the podcast members. The theories are often rooted in the realities of life. That's why theory style is so important, y'all. But let me know what your answer is to that. I want to end this video by saying follow me on Instagram to Stop TV. Follow me on Twitter to Stop TV. And I want to tell everybody that I have Patreon. There was an interesting space yesterday where we discussed, should Melyssa Ford be allowed to speak at Harvard in light of her active OnlyFans? Oh, it was divisive.
Hip hop artists speak at Harvard all the time. Would you agree with that? So, for me, the question would be, well, if people who rap about killing black people who rap about
Can,
or
but,
glorify that, I
wait,
should
can we
say,
use
people,
specific rap? Which specific rap artist? Because that does make a difference.
well, what rappers do you know that spoke at Harvard?
I don't know any, but if you're using that,
Okay.
it's a difference
No,
between
no,
Chief Keef and
J.
Common.
Cole.
You know, like if Common's
J. Cole spoke at Harvard.
okay, that's different. Yeah,
So that's what I'm saying. I could name lots of people, but I guess that's my point, is that I wouldn't want my outrage to start in with people who do music videos when some of the artists in whose videos she was have spoken at Harvard. You get what I'm saying? And there's no outrage about that. That for me would be interesting, right? I mean, we've seen the Jay-Z lectures at Harvard. We've seen the speakers at Harvard. We saw Nas be uh, the fact there's a Nasir Jones fellowship at Harvard.
There was people making claims saying that, oh, there was rappers who talked up there, and they talk about the killings of people in the hood and all of that stuff. And I'm like, but I don't know. I didn't find any research that there was any egregious rappers. Like, there was certain rappers like GZA who spoke, but I never kind of considered GZA or even a lot of the Wu-Tang guys to be people who engage in talking about like street violence. Yeah, they talk about violence in terms of like the gory side, like a horror book, more so than I'm going to run down in your neighborhood, I'm going to murder your ops, I'm going to murder you. No, it's not like that. Then they said war criminals were allowed to speak at Harvard. Well, none of the war criminals people provided were actually people convicted of war crimes. So I'm not necessarily against Melyssa Ford trying to speak at Harvard, but I could see why Harvard would reject her for having an active OnlyFans. And it was a mental health panel. I don't know if she's really qualified to speak, which is what the issue is with Melyssa Ford, is that she is trying to enter spaces that she doesn't have much, leeway in. Her calling card is being a video vixen, and she's done stuff in media, but what has she done in terms of mental health? Now, see, if Hot and Bothered goes crazy and they start really making episodes about mental health, then yeah. But as of now, maybe not so much. And it's all on my Patreon. Also, there's a lot more content on my Patreon, about 250 pieces worth of content. So check it out. Tap in. This is Danny from The Stop. Peace.